When participating in any exercise program, there is a possibility of physical injury and an increased load on the heart, which may result in dizziness, shortness of breath, and in extreme circumstances may result in a heart attack. If you experience any dizziness or pain, stop exercising immediately and seek medical attention as required. By participating in this exercise program, you agree to freely accept all associated risks, dangers, and hazards. The governors of the University of Alberta, their officers, employees, and volunteers are not responsible for any injury or loss of any kind sustained by you while participating. Consult your physician before beginning any exercise program.
Just a reminder for any class formats that you ever participate in, that it's your class, your workout. I'll say this at the beginning of everything that I teach, and just keep this in mind for any activity that you participate in. So if there are movements or positions that don't support your body, then please feel free to modify. If there is not an appropriate modification offered to you, I'll do my best to provide different options. But if whatever I'm offering still doesn't work for you, feel free to freestyle it. So you don't have to wait for the instructor to give you something. But if you do have specific requests or needs that we can support you with, then certainly ask and inquire. Just be mindful of the difference between discomfort and pain. So sometimes we do things that are uncomfortable to promote growth and strength and things like that, but we don't want to cause any injury or aggravate any existing injury. So be mindful of how your body's feeling today, anything that's going on for you. Okay, that's the disclaimer. You can feel free. I call this natural movement flow, and it's hatha flow yoga in combination with a MovNat practice. So I encourage you to flow in and out of these movements in a way that you want to. So don't feel that they have to look a certain way, be rigid. Feel free to find movement within the postures and movement within the sequences and variations, and use this just as an opportunity to be curious and explore. So make this your own practice. I'll invite everybody to come down onto their backs to start laying down. If you want to start seated, you're certainly welcome to. So you just find a position that you feel best beginning your practice in, giving all the ramble. There'll be less ramble as we start. So on our backs, I like to start with feet on the floor, and then just tucking the tailbone, drawing the tailbone towards the feet or the heels a little bit more, just so you find a little bit more length and release through the low back. Palms can be faced up if that's comfortable, taking the shoulder blades, rolling them underneath the body slightly, maybe tucking the chin a little bit if your ponytail is not in the way of your supine or laying position. Closing your eyes here if you like, and we'll just start with a few nice deep breaths. So inhaling through your nose, and just a full, complete exhale out through your mouth. So we're going to take about 5 rounds of breath like that, just on your own rhythm, inhaling through your nose. You can pause or hold your breath at the top of your inhale, and then push every bit of air out through your mouth. And when you think you can't release anymore, push out that last little bit of air from the bottom of the lungs. So a few more like that, inhaling through your nose. Hold it. And deep, full exhale out through the mouth. Using a little bit of abdominal contraction to squeeze out that last bit of air. Again, deep breath in. Hold it. And let it all go. And one last time, just breathing in fullest, deepest breath. Hold it. And exhaling any stress or tension that may have followed you into your practice space, onto your mat. So just allowing your breath to return back to a natural rhythm. And just really letting your entire body surrender down into the ground that you're sitting or laying on. So just tuning into your body, into the sensations that you're experiencing, into the sensation of the different points of contact that your body is making with the ground. So just landing in your physical body. You want to send the mind and spirit out of the body. Those get in the way. And just really tuning into the physical intelligence. Physical sensations. Knowing that at 12:55, any important activities that you have waiting for you will still be there. So just taking a few moments here just to land in your space, just to be present for yourself. So just let's begin to extend the breath a little bit. If it's helpful for you, you can take one hand onto the chest and one hand onto the abdomen, and we want to focus the breath into the hand on the belly. So keeping the chest as still as possible and breathing in, taking some diaphragmatic breaths. It might help you to bring a count to your breath. So if you want to inhale to a count of 4, 5, maybe 6, and exhale to that same length. Just taking 5 deep diaphragmatic breaths. Nice, slow and controlled. Undoing tension as you continue to breathe. Finishing off your last exhale here, or not last exhale, but your last focused diaphragmatic breath. You can take your hands away, you can place them on your chest and on your abdomen. And then let's just extend the legs if there's no discomfort or tension in the low back. Maybe reach the arms up and overhead. And let's just tense up the entire body. So squeeze your butt, squeeze your legs, stretch your toes, splay your hands open wide, scrunch your face, and then release and let that all go through the body. We're gonna do that 2 more times. So just bring a lot of tension everywhere in the body, squeezing the arms, the legs, the torso, the trunk, the hips, butt, the feet. You're gonna let it go. And again, tension through the entire body. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Reach, tighten a little bit more, and relax. Good. So from here, we'll roll over. We'll do a little spinal rolling actually. So from laying on your back, so supine, you're going to take one arm, so you can start with your left, reach across the body, trying to keep your hips glued to the ground, and then just roll yourself onto your belly. So starting from the ground, the foundations of ground movement, what's the first thing an infant does is it rolls over. So from our back, reaching the other arm across and rolling onto the tummy. And then taking that arm back behind us and rolling all the way back down onto our backs. Same thing with the legs. So pick up one leg, take it across the midline of the body and roll onto your stomach. Lifting up that same leg, taking it back and behind you, back onto your back. Other side, lifting your right leg and crossing over the midline. Keeping those hips nice and close to the floor, lifting that same leg and coming back around. Good, so let's just make our way onto our stomach however you would like. You can do your side rolling and just prop yourself up so that your elbows are just slightly ahead of your shoulders. And we're just finding a nice extension through the spine. So we want to find that full extension. You don't want to feel any discomfort in the low back, so you can just take those elbows a little bit forward, press the elbows down into the floor, really imagine that you're creating length through the entire length of your spine. And let's just look left and right a few times towards the feet. Good. Okay, so from here, let's take the hands underneath the shoulders and tucking the toes. Connect the knees into the mat and bring some tension into your trunk. You're going to push up into a tabletop position and then rock back, hips to heels. So we're going to do that a few more times. Inhale forward, exhale, lower chest to your mat. Inhale, press up. So when you're pressing up, be mindful that you're not snaking through the spine, that you have tension through your trunk so that you can push up with a nice, strong, straight spine. And then exhale your hips back down to your heels. Let's do that 2 more times, lowering down. Inhale, push up. Exhale, take the hips to the heels. Inhale forward. Exhale, lower down. Okay. Let's just come into a tabletop position. There's a lot of weight bearing into the wrists in yoga, fitness, these natural movement practices. So I'll always invite you to take wrist breaks by taking the weight back towards the heels and off of the hands if you know you have wrist issues. And I'll show you some wrist movements that you can do. But I just want you to find a little bit of a freestyle movement here in your knee-hand position. So you can rock your hips from side to side, kind of wag your tail. Bring your hips forward and back. So back towards your heels and then forward to stack over your knees. Just warming through the spine. I always like toes tucked, but if that doesn't work for you, you don't have to tuck your toes. I just like that bottom of the foot and toe stretch in a lot of these movements, especially supportive in crawling, that we have that ability and our body is used to that sensation of those toes tucked under. So just breathing and moving here. You can turn this into a bit of a cat-cow, maybe bringing a bit of a extension and flexion through your spine. Again, this is your flow practice, so feel free to move in a way that feels good. Okay, from here, let's come into that top of a push-up or high plank position. Find a hollow through your belly. So we don't want to be dropping down through the hips. You can watch my bad plank. Here's a bad plank. And we don't want the hips elevated like this. That's not quite a down dog, but not quite a plank. We want those shoulders right over the wrists. We want that hollow through the tummy, like I'm pulling my belly button away from the ground. Take a deep breath in. And then exhale, elevate the hips, coming into a downward facing dog or an inverted V position. You can always do this from the knees if weight bearing into the upper body does not support you. So forehead can come down to the mat or maybe a block cushion. Arms are extended. Hips over knees in that variation, or we're just in that downward facing dog. Think about lifting the hips as much as you can so that your tailbone is that peak of that inverted V. And then your legs can be bent as much as needed if your hamstrings are tight. So from here, let's walk the hands back to the midpoint position of your mat. So you're just shortening your dog. And again, if heels are lifted away from the ground, that's totally fine. Getting a little bit more flexion into the ankles, maybe experiencing a little bit more length in the back of the legs here. Ensuring that you're breathing, that you're releasing any tension that you might be holding in your head and neck. So give your head a gentle nod, yes and no. And let's walk those hands all the way back towards the feet so that you come into a forward fold. So if it feels better for you, you can heel toe the feet slightly wider than hip distance if your hamstrings are tight, or if that just feels better for you. You can interlace the hands into the elbow creases again. Let the head go, so no holding at the back of the neck. Just give the head a gentle shake and nod. Let's inhale, bring the torso up so it's parallel to the floor without rounding or hunching through the spine. So I have tension through my trunk, and then exhale, fold. In the same way, let's inhale with a long flat back all the way up to standing. And exhale, hands to heart. So I'm still facing the top of my mat, bringing the feet about hip distance apart, and we'll just flow through a few forward folds. So inhale, take the arms high. Exhale, hinging from the hip crease with the knees soft, folding all the way forward. Inhale the same way up as we came down, the nice long flat back, tension through the trunk to support the spine. Exhale, hands to heart. And again, a few more times. Inhale, sweep the arms up. Exhale, long spine, hinging again from the hip. There's a theme with this hip hinge thing. It's going to show up everywhere, I promise. Inhale, lengthen the spine, shoulder blades squeeze together, sending the crown of the head forward. Exhale, hands to heart, and again, one more time. Exhale, long spine, fold forward, spilling over the pelvis. This time, inhale just to halfway. See if you can draw the shoulders down and away from the ears, squeezing the shoulder blades together, looking straight down. Trying not to crank your neck, so you don't have to look up. The back of the neck is in line with your spine. Exhale, forward fold, and we're going to walk those hands forward to that midpoint again, so that short down dog, and just take 3 breaths here. And pedaling out through your heels, if that feels good. Finding a little bit more length in the lower legs, the calves, probably into the hamstrings as well. And then walk the hands a few more forward, so you find your downward facing dog. If you're wondering what a good distance your hands from your feet should be, hinge forward from your shoulders into that high plank so your shoulders are stacked over your wrists, and then elevate the hips and send your heels back. You may need to make some adjustments with the hands or the feet, but that's pretty close to where you want your hands and feet to be from each other in your downward facing dog. And you're still breathing here. Inhale forward to that high plank, top of that push up, and then lower slowly. You can do so from the knees or from that full plank all the way down to the belly. Okay, so from here we're going to roll over onto our backs. You want to use one of your hand or leg rollovers, you can. I didn't. I just did it the old-fashioned whatever way. We're going to do a little bit of spinal rocking. So I'll give you your option if you don't feel comfortable rocking along the length of your spine. Hug the knees in towards your chest, and you can do a little rock from side to side, a little rock forward to back, just gently hugging the knees in and pulling the knees away from the chest. You don't have to do the full spinal rock. If we're going to rock, I'm going to body weight transfer. Use the strength of my core, so tension through the trunk to rock myself up, and body weight transfer or momentum. So hollow through the belly, and then come up to a nice long spine. So flat back when I'm seated here in this bent sit position, as I exhaling it around. And just be careful you don't want to smash your head into the floor. You also need to rock back with a rounded spine so that you don't slam your flat back into the ground. So just try 2 to 3 more, getting at least 5 repetitions of that rocking along your spine. So let's come forward. If you have something to sit on, like a cushion or a block, I always recommend that for any seated positions. And if you don't have anything, that's totally fine. It's just usually a little bit more comfortable. So let's find this cross sit position. Sit the opposite cross-legged direction that you would normally. So we usually have sort of a tendency, and let's just look left and right. Sitting up nice and tall, so see if you can bring your shoulders to stack over your hips a little bit more. Chest is dropping down, so we're not flaring through the rib cage when we're seated. We're bringing the front ribs back and down towards the spine. Just looking once more over each shoulder. Good. So side bent sit, the shin box or the 90-90, there's all kinds of different names for this position. I have my back foot flexed and I'm sitting in a way that makes my shins a 90-90 or 90-degree angle. You might find that one hip is way high off the ground, and that's totally fine. You can bolster or elevate that one hip so you feel like you're more centered or stacked over both hips. So we're just going to take a few moments here in this side bent sit position and just kind of adjust and wiggle a little bit so that you feel that you're mostly centered. And we're breathing, just sitting up nice and tall, maybe just kind of holding on to the knee or the shin to make sure that you're in a good position. So from here, we're just going to be doing some reaching in this side bent sit position. So I'm going to post with one arm, I'm going to reach across the body, posting with the other arm, reaching the other direction. And so you don't have to reach the same direction that I am. I just want you to explore the space that you're sitting in and the position that you're in. So that could be coming down the forearm, reaching around, posting with one arm, reaching towards the back foot, looking towards your back foot, reaching across, up and around. So just exploring, finding that hinge forward to the side, to the other side. Finding some twisting. One of my favorites is to post behind, depress that back shoulder of that posted arm and elevate the hips up and reaching up and over, finding some nice length in those hip flexors that get so wonderfully tight from either our activity or our sitting or both. One more breath and exhale. And back down into your side bent sit. Now we're just going to do a little bit of reversing here. So if you've never done this, it's going to feel weird. If you have done this, you'll be like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing. Feet stay planted, and I'm just going to reverse my knees to the opposite direction. Now, if you need to post with the hands, it's totally fine. Just post. But if you can maintain a nice, tall, long spine during your reverses, then you can sit up tall and just post and reverse from side to side. So if that's totally not working for you, coming to this bent sit position like I'm in right here with your arms posted behind you and just do the little tick-tock. So this is a little bit more of a gentler variation that might support your body a little bit more. Just be mindful that you're not sinking back into your shoulders and losing your neck, but you're always pushing the shoulders down and away from the ears and gently rocking those knees, or else we're doing the regular reversing. So let's come over to the side that we weren't on in that side bent sit. Here we are. Knees are at 90-90 again. Taking that cushion or bolster underneath one hip if you feel like you're kind of lopsided or not sitting straight up. So just finding a nice tall, good position, using your hands onto your shins or your knees just to find that good position, rocking into your hips a little bit, ensuring that you're breathing. That's the number one principle for any practice, is always ensure that you're breathing. Good. And let's move into that reaching. So again, freestyle it here, reaching across the body one way, posting with the other arm, reaching the other way. Being mindful of any tightnesses, discomforts, pinchiness. So be super gentle if there's parts of the body that maybe are a little bit cranky and don't feel great in certain positions. So don't force your body into any positions that are causing pain. So again, just using this as exploration, finding those hinges and twists, hinging forward. Again, I like that arm post behind, reaching up over, elevating the hips, breathing, nice strong reach. When you're complete with your reaching. Come into this bent sit position. So bent sit can be here with the hands onto the shins, and if everything's good, you can take the hands behind you to post if you need to, and just take 3 breaths here. Nice tall position, long spine. Let's come into this long sit position. Staff pose, Dandasana. This doesn't look like much, but it's a lot of work to just sit, especially if your hamstrings are tight. So feel free to use that cushion or that block to elevate the hips to sit on top of, so you find that forward tilt of the pelvis, sitting up nice and tall, using the trunk to support that length through the spine. And if we can, let's hinge a little bit further forward without rounding through the spine. So the goal here is not to touch the toes. We want to keep length at the spine, keep the chest open, keep length at the front body, and just hinge forward so that you feel that little bit of extra sensation at the backs of the legs. If it supports you to use your strap, then grab that. If you have something nearby, it could be a towel. Hand towel, whatever you have, a belt. So long spine, chest is lifting. I always think corset, so that space between the bottom of my ribs and my pubic bone stays nice and long through those forward folds. So again, we don't want to collapse through the front body to get closer to those toes that we want to touch. So inhale, find a bit of length. And exhale, maybe drawing yourself a little bit further forward. Staying active through the legs. One more time. Inhale, finding more length through the spine, coming back and out a little bit more. And exhale, hinging a little bit further forward. Maybe bring the hands a little bit closer towards the ankles or towards the toes. Good. You can release the strap now. If you've used it, just take it off to the side. So let's come back into that bent sit position. Take the hands and externally rotate the arms so your fingers are pointing to the walls, to the sides of you. And we're just gonna elevate the hips. And you don't have to lift yourself up super high. Just elevate the hips maybe an inch or 2 above the floor. And you're just gonna kind of scooch your hips forward and back. So this is gonna help mobilize the shoulders for when we're doing inverted crawls at some point. We'll get there. It doesn't have to be today. Again, don't lose your neck here and sink back into your shoulders. Make sure, again, shoulders are pressing down and just some gentle scooching forward and back. Again, if you have some tightness at the front of your shoulders, you'll notice that that'll really help to open up and mobilize there. Good. From here, let's elevate the hips just a little bit more, keeping those shoulders down, collarbones nice and broad. Good. From here, we're going to move into some tripod transition. So if you're new to it, be aware it can be frustrating and a little weird. So I won't be mirroring you. Post with your right arm and extend your right leg, left knee bent. So we're going to start on this one side. Shoulder down and away from the right ear. We're going to elevate that right hip and pull that right foot in and under so that we come into that knee hand position. Now with toes tucked, I'm going to elevate the knees an inch off the floor, kick that right foot through and come back into that position that we started in. So that's your basic tripod transition. We'll make it a little fancier as we go, but if your brain is starting to glitch, don't worry about it. You'll get there with practice. So elevate that right hip, pull that right leg in, knee hand, drop the knees, elevate the knees, kick that right foot through. And we'll do one more time again, pressing right shoulder down, lifting that hip, pulling that right leg in, toes tucked, knees elevate, and kick that foot through. Let's try that on the other side. So left leg extended, left hand or left arm is your post, right knee is bent. So just ensure that you're undoing a tension where you don't need to hold it, like in that right arm. So let's elevate that left hip, pull that left leg in, pivot so that you come into your knee hand position. Toes are tucked, elevate the knees, kick that left leg through the way you came in. So just go slow. If you're not working at my pace, that's totally fine. If you're a little bit more familiar with this movement, feel free to go a little bit faster. You can get a few more repetitions in. You can make this a little bit more fancy if you know a few more of the progressions, but we're not going to get too complicated today. First official class of the term. So let's get at least 3 tripod transitions on each side. There we go. Okay, so let's come back into that hand knee position, tripod transition yourself there, and just beginning to start a little core strength and stability that will help us for our crawling. So again, a lot of weight bearing into the wrists. If you need a wrist break, please take it. I'll show you a few things that you can do if you're finding that this is causing some crankiness, which is totally normal. Taking the fingertips towards your knees, spreading your thumbs away from each other and just bending the elbows in towards the midline and towards your body, and just getting a little bit of a wrist stretch in that way. You can again take the hands so that the fingers are pointing out, and if you find that wrist mobility is a problem, then just gentle rocking from side to side and forward and back, just gently, as we're doing a lot of that weight bearing into the wrist movement, is just going to help open up those spaces that may not be used to being in this position. So if you find that it's really challenging, that's totally normal. My favorite personally is this palms face up. So the backs of the hands into the mat. And to make this a little bit more intense, I'm going to work on extending my elbows or straightening them. For some of you, your elbows might be totally up to the side, and that's totally fine. Everybody's anatomy and is set up a little bit differently. So I'm just going to gently bring my hips back towards my heels, just gently, just to find that sensation and opening into the wrists and into the forearms. So again, these are nice things to do if you find like, okay, I've had enough of crawling, I've had enough of tabletop, my wrists are shot at the moment. Come into one of these positions. Okay, so that's your program. We'll give it a little roll together. Okay, so back into that hand knee where we were. So let's do a little bit of contralateral reaching. So that means opposite hand, opposite leg. I'm going to take my right arm forward. I'm not going to let that shoulder drop or elevate above the left. The shoulder stays square to the floor. And I'm just going to elevate my left leg. You don't have to reach it back far away. You don't have to reach forward. I just want you to elevate so that you can feel that twist through the spine that you have to resist to hold that square position with hips and shoulders, and then drop that down. Now take your left hand forward and your right leg back. Find that tension through the trunk so that you can hold that square position. Notice the twist that you have to resist on the one side. That shoulder will want to drop, that hip will want to drop, but we need to hold to lift and then release. So let's just move with the breath. So elevating right hand, left leg, and back down. Just as if, so this is going to set us up for some crawling. You're looking just a few inches past your hands, so if you were crawling out in nature, you'd be watching where you're going. Okay. So finish off on the side that you weren't on, little contralateral reaching, little wrist stretch if you need it, and then building a little bit more strength. So toes are tucked here, back is flat like a table, drawing some tension in towards your low belly into that trunk, and just elevate the knees like an inch off of the ground. You're just going to breathe here for a few moments. Release down whenever you feel like you need to, but we want to build a little bit of heat into the body. So this would be the position that we would be in our crawling, in our foot hand crawl. So we want to build that core strength so that we can maintain that position. Let's just hold for 2 more breaths if we can. Good. And release that down. Let's just rock the hips back towards the heels. Keep the toes tucked and just come into this flexed foot kneeling position. So if your toes, your feet are super unhappy here, of course, just bring that body weight forward to take a little bit more pressure off the toes and the feet. It's not really meant to be comfortable if you're not used to sitting in this position, so your toes might be screaming at you a little bit, but that's okay. And just breathing, just finding your shoulders over top of hips if you can, and again, lean forward if you need to. Elevate the hips over the knees so you're in this tall kneeling position. Untuck your toes. We're going to sit back down onto the heels. So if you know that deep flexion in the knees does not support your body, then we're just going to use a blanket or a block. So before you come down, know that if you need that blanket or cushion between the backs of your legs and your calves, do so. But if we can, let's sit right back onto those heels. So again, with this deep kneeling position, there might be discomfort. I don't want you to experience pain. There's certain movements, in my opinion, that we need to work ourselves towards. So if you can't do it today, that doesn't mean you can never do it. But we want to build our way back into positions and into movements that our bodies are naturally meant to be able to do. So if we've lost that mobility, then we just slowly get back there. And there could be some discomfort on the way, but again, no pain or injury. Let's bring the hips over to one side and reach the arm away. Just finding a bit of length into the side of the hip. And we're breathing. So it's like a tight side bend sit. So using the hands as bolsters or not, let's come back into that deep kneeling position if we can. But again, if deep kneeling position isn't for you, then you're just gonna swap it over so that your hips come down onto the ground. Little tight side bent sit, and we're gonna reach the opposite direction, finding length side body and the other side of that hip just reaching towards that direction that your hand is. Okay, either using the hands as posts or not, coming back into that kneeling position. Come into tall kneeling position. Again, always have a blanket. Take one leg forward. In this position, in this lunging position or this tall split kneeling position, I like to tuck my back toes. You don't have to, but let's just tuck under through the pelvis. My shoulders stacked over my hips. And even just being here in this position, you should feel some opening into the hip flexor in the front of the hip. So just breathing here. Now from here, I'm going to take kind of an angle. So the knees are moving away from the midline of the body, and I'm going to reach over my front knee. So your knee can come over the toes of your front foot. And we want to find that flexion into the ankle. We don't want to experience pain, but let's just reach in front of that bent knee as if we're reaching for something. Again, finding that spreading away from the midline of the knees. Breathing, relaxing shoulders, and doing tension. Good, coming back up. Tall kneeling position, maybe a little bit of balance required here. Let's take that other knee forward. Again, I find the back toes tucks provides a little bit more stability. So again, cubic bone, pull it forward slightly so that you feel that opening at the front of the hip, and we're just breathing here, relaxing the shoulders. Squeezing that back glute maybe a little bit more so that you feel that increased sensation at the front of that hip of your bottom leg. And now we're going to hinge forward, and again that action of the knees spreading away from the midline of the body. My front knee is coming over the front toes, and I'm reaching. probably a different position than your body might be used to. I know it was for me when I first moved into this. Relax the arms, undo tension, hinge forward, good, and then come all the way back up, tall kneeling. Okay, from here we're going to come into a deep squat, and if you have better ankle mobility than me, you won't need any fancy props, but you know, life's a bit of a journey. So let's come from this. So I'm in the flex foot kneeling position. I'm going to push myself up so that I'm in this deep kneeling position. Let's just see if we can bring the hands next to the hips and balance here for a moment. Bringing the shoulders back over the hips. And let's inhale to stand. There we go. Okay, so deep squat position. Again, if you know, you can come into a squat with your hips lower than your knees without your heels coming away from the ground, then we're going to do that. Finding a squat stance that works best for you. Again, everybody's anatomy is a little bit different. Kind of set up bones and sockets slightly differently. So I'm going to elevate. I have my heels elevated, maybe onto a cushion or onto a block, and I'm just going to sink down into this passive squat. If you don't have anything to put underneath your heels and your heels are lifted, that's totally fine. Let's try to flatten the back as much as we can. And breathe here, just noticing sensations where you're feeling tightness or opening. Again, this should be a passive position. If it doesn't feel like that, hopefully it'll get there one day. Let's take one hand, reach for the opposite ankle, and reach that other arm high, just getting a little bit of a twist through the spine. And then taking that hand, other hand to the opposite ankle, reaching up. Good, coming back down to center. And then exhale, engage to the glutes and stand all the way up. We're gonna do that a few more times. So inhale, sit all the way down into that deep squat. So again, if knee issues are true for you, then you don't have to come all the way down. So you're gonna work on building a bit of quad strength because you won't come down into that passive squat, so you'll just be here. And maybe you'll just do a reach like so with your hips parallel to your knees. So you just change it as you need to. So it's still a good thing because you'll still be building that quad strength. So reach up one direction, reach up the other direction, and exhale, engage to the glutes. Imagine that you're externally rotating your legs as you stand all the way up, and we're gonna go back down. Inhale. Exhale, reach, holding onto one ankle, holding onto the other ankle. You can notice the difference here when you stand. Turn on your glutes, so squeeze your butt muscles, externally rotate through your thigh bones as you stand all the way up. We've got two more. Inhale down. Reaching one way. Turning on those glutes. And all that passive sitting. Standing all the way up. I don't know how many more I said. This is the last one. Reaching, again, only coming down into the depth that is challenging, that supports you, that doesn't cause any pain. And squeeze those glutes before you stand. Think about tearing a piece of paper in between your feet. There we go. Okay, that was fun. There will be more squatting to come, I promise. Okay, standing, a little bit of balance. We're getting there, friends. Amazing how 50 minutes flies when we're having fun. Okay, so you're gonna come onto one leg. You can pick whichever leg you want. If you have a chair or a countertop, if balance is a challenge for you, then find that a wall, that's totally fine. And we just wanna elevate that one leg. So you're engaging through the glute and the outer thigh of your supporting leg and listing that hip, the hip list. I think about pulling it down, the hip of my standing leg into the ground, and it should clear your other foot, hip list. you learned something today if you didn't know what a hip list was. And if it's still confusing, that's okay. So that I'm swinging my leg just forward and back. Good. Here's the weird one. If you don't have something to hold on to, this is a little bit more awkward. The support in front. Just a gentle leg swing. And again, it doesn't have to be big. So maybe we're just working on balance and you just got a little leg swing going. But if you have the range of motion and the balance to go a little bit more, then you can do that. Good. Still standing on the same leg. Tuck under through the pelvis. Let's point those toes forward and see how high we can elevate that lifted leg. A little higher. Point the toes and reach. Grow a little taller with your spine. Hold for 3. Kick up a little higher for 2. 1 more and kick. And slowly lower that back down. And smile. It feels so good. Okay, give it a little wiggle. A little shake. A little shimmy. You're at home, it's fine. You're already weird, your family knows that, so it doesn't matter. Okay, other leg. And again, find that hip list. So if you're kind of wobbly, that's totally fine. Get your chair, get your counter, get your wall. Finding that engagement through the glute of your standing leg and the outside of that thigh, and just get that other leg clear from the ground and just a little leg swing. And again, it doesn't have to be much, and you don't even have to swing it. We're just getting a gentle leg swing going forward and back. Okay, and then we'll go out in front. So I'm going parallel to you. Again, it doesn't have to be a big range of motion if you don't have it. If you do, you can go up a little bit more, in a little bit more, but a little bit more challenging for balance, I find, in this direction. And you know it's coming, so you're excited, so it's good. Okay, so still strong and solid through that standing leg. We're pointing the toes of the elevated leg, and let's see how high we can bring that leg. Lift it. Point. Flex through that quad. Who needs a leg press at the gym when you have your own leg to lift? You didn't know how heavy it was. Lift a little higher for 3. Kick and point those toes for 2. A little bit more, and slowly lower it down. Oh, let's shake it out this time. Shake out those legs. Shake out your arms. Move through your spine. Move through your shoulders. The arms going forward and back. The rigidity and all the extra tension and build up in the body, and just let it all go. Bounce up and down. Shake it out. My tech girl's leaving. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Shake, shake, shake. Hands, feet, body. Good way to energize yourself in midday if you're feeling kind of stagnant, tired. Get the body moving, get the bubbles fizzing like a can of Coke. Like those, kids when they're like 5. There's like no energy limit. I know parents who have tested it. Okay. Okay, let's just stand here for a moment. Ground down through your feet. Eyes can be closed if you like. Find a nice tall standing position. Think of bringing your shoulders back. Imagine that you're standing up against a wall. If you have a wall close by that you can go to go stand at. I'm gonna do it because I'm still in the shot. Hey, even better. Go into a wall. Bring my shoulders to the wall. There we go. Back of the head is to the wall. I find a little bit of a pelvic tuck here to keep that hollow through the trunk. Chin slightly tucked. This might feel totally weird, but this is a very natural way to stand. I just want to take 3 more deep breaths in the standing position, whether you're at a wall or not at a wall. Notice how you have to pull your abdomen in slightly so your low back isn't arching away from the wall. We want some tension through the trunk, through the core. We want that to be turned on to be active, whether we're standing, whether we're seated. I know it's a tall order because we do so much sitting. Last breath. Okay, you can walk away from the wall if you came to your wall, and we'll finish either seated or laying down on your back. So one way I like to come down to lengthen my spine, feet bent, knees bent, feet on the ground, hollow through the belly, rounding through the spine, tucking the chin, reaching towards my heels, slowly lowering with control, one vertebra at a time. Slowly, slowly, slowly. At the end of this, I like to pick up my head, draw it away, lengthening my spine even more, tucking my chin in. Knees can stay bent again. It's a nice release for the low back if you know you have kind of low back tension or discomfort. If it feels good, you can extend your legs. Or if there is no tension or discomfort, extend the legs. And let's take a few deep side breaths to close here. Inhaling through your nose. And out through your mouth. And again, inhaling through your nose. You can take a deep audible sigh out through your mouth. And last time, deep breath in. And deep audible sigh. So if you have the time in your day to just remain here in this resting posture for 5 minutes, I invite you to do so. We all have the time, we just need to make the time. Even better would be to go for a walk out in nature after this practice. I know, 50 minutes out of your day might be a tall order, but outdoors, fresh air, taking that calm, peaceful experience that you've created, bringing that outside and then back into your daily activities. So just relaxing, undoing any muscles, just noticing if you're still clenching, holding on tightly in your body. Again, taking your awareness and your attention back inward to the sensations that you're feeling in your body, to the points of contact that your body is making, the ground that you're laying on. Rest here. Again, taking those additional few minutes, if you have that available to you. It is 12:55, so if you know you have to move on to the next activity of your day, that is the time. Taking those extra 5 minutes if you have them. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about the class or any of our online and virtual activities, feel free to put those into the chat box. I'll remain online for a few minutes for anyone who has a question or a comment. So happy Wednesday, everyone. Thank you all for coming to join us for our natural flow.